What trends have you seen? What questions do you have? Have any of these things affected you? Because 2025 has been a year for so many of us. I have heard so many people online talk about this as the year of stripping. Things that were not meant for you are not going to be there anymore. And that honestly could not have been a more accurate year to me. Welcome to the Advanced Women's Health Podcast, where we empower women with the latest insights and advice on holistic health. From cutting-edge medical research to practical wellness tips, our mission is to help you thrive at every stage of life. Join us as we explore topics ranging from hormonal balance and reproductive health to nutrition and mental well-being. Whether you're seeking solutions for a specific health concern or simply want to enhance your overall wellness, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this journey to better health together. This is the Advanced Women's Health Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a solo episode of the Advanced Women's Health Podcast. I am excited today to dive into a different perspective. Oftentimes, we're taking one topic, talking about what we treated this week, all that fun stuff, but I get asked questions from you guys all the time about my perspective on health trends, what's worth it, what's not, what we need to be thinking about. I get so many questions from my patients, from patients of Advanced Women's Health, for just about what's happening online. Because I think, honestly, the world of social media has been so incredibly helpful to connect people, to educate people, to help people just recognize their roadblocks and recognize the things that they don't understand. But it has really overwhelmed people in a lot of ways. So today we're going to talk about sleep. We're going to talk about creatine. We're going to talk about menopause. We are going to talk about some of the downsides of social media and some of the things I've seen with that. We are going to talk about metabolic rehab, and we're going to start off with an overview of Advanced Women's Health 2025. So last year, I did an internal review. So I went through with our whole team really what we had done in 2024, all the changes that we had made, all the patients we had seen, how much growth we had experienced. And it was something I got a lot of really positive feedback about from the team. But it was also one of those things that so many people were like, we should share this in a different way. So I thought this year I would come on and give highlights. So for those of you who don't know, because I know some of you guys listened for the content and not necessarily know that there's a big clinic behind it. So Advanced Women's Health and now Advanced Men's Health, that's part of our launch this year, we have a group of clinics I own and operate, all of them, which is a question I get asked a lot, actually. I may do like a business side of health podcast at one point, answering some of your business questions. But yes, I am the crazy person who owns and operates all of them. This is not a franchise. I refuse to give up control. But I think honestly, when it comes to the medical standards at the clinic, these are the things that make us special, right? It's the fact that we are collaborating, that we have the greatest minds in naturopathic medicine across the country. It's the fact that we have nurse practitioners integrating and giving perspectives. It's all of these things and much, much more that make us special. It's the fact that even though we are a big clinic, we are still community focused, right? We engage in our communities. It is really critical to us that we do not feel like some of those bigger chain franchise medical locations, because we want people to know you're getting a standard of care that's unlike anything else you would ever get. You're getting the benefits of a big clinic, the best minds, research continuously moving forward. You're getting the benefits of all these things without the downsides of some of the bigger places where you can feel like a number. So, anyways, as an aside, but we're always really looking to invest in our communities and collaborate. And that's a really, really big thing about what I am trying to achieve and why we will continue to grow, is because there is really this appetite right now for evidence-informed care that's hyper-personalized to you, but also these experiences that can offer a lot more. So this year, we continued to go throughout the course of the year. We see so many patients. Honestly, like I said, I should look at the number right now, but we're at least 2,000, if not closer to 2,500 patients a month, which is just a beautiful and wild thing all at the same time. And in 2025, we launched a lot of new initiatives. We were trying so many new things. And I think the reason why we're doing a lot of that is because I am a doctor first, right? So I started my career in naturopathic medicine, being a naturopathic doctor. And then I grew as a business owner because I had to make the difference I wanted to make as a doctor, not necessarily because I was planning the business as the thing. It was because the medicine that we were delivering required a big business. I really didn't go out there looking to have a lot of clinics. And I know a lot of people that's really surprising to them. They're like, but how do you get 9 clinics by accident? And I'm like, I don't know, because you're me. But it's of course, very intentional and not accidental, but it was also not planned. And because we have something so special, we really kind of grew by force. It was one of those things that they always say, if you're not growing, you're shrinking. And I think that was really what I felt like. If I wasn't growing this clinic and making the impact that I knew I was capable of making, or putting one foot in front of the other in terms of how I wanted to change healthcare for women, then I was really shrinking my potential. And so this year, we made a lot of changes in alignment with the fact that I'm still seeing patients. I'm still a doctor and I'm still seeing what's happening out there. And what's happening in the world right now is that people are more overwhelmed than ever. And so we were seeing and continue to see people leave their visit and they are overwhelmed. They may get a whole bunch of information that's in line with what they read online. They may get information that's not in line with what they read online. They go tell their friends what they're doing. Their friends are either like, oh, that's amazing. Let me join you. And they come to the clinic as well, which happens a lot. Or they're in a situation where they're like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Are you doing this? People are more connected and more alone than they ever have been. They do not have the same support systems and structures in place. People do not realize that when they're going, some of them do. I'm making generalizations, but I think you're working with me here. But when people are going into appointments, they're going in because they don't feel good and they want to feel better, but it's not like they have sat there and went through and been like, okay, this is all of the things I'm going to need to do and change and think through in order to accomplish my goals. And so they leave that one appointment and they're overwhelmed. They're getting a lot of information. They don't know how to implement it. They don't know how to action it. They don't know what their next steps are. And so what happens and what I saw as a trend in 2023 and 2024 is people end up coming to us and then going to some kind of programming. So they would come see our docs and then they would go into a program. And that program would be walking them through for a 6 week, 3 month, 6 month period of time exactly what to do. But then the information was conflicted. Or that program would then sell them a bunch of functional testing. The practitioner would get the results and say, okay, this is what I think you should do. They would then bring the results to us. We would have a different perspective on them in many situations. And then this person feels either overwhelmed, or one of the things I heard a lot, which honestly really broke my heart, is I just spent thousands of dollars and I don't feel like I got a result. And so now I'm coming to see you because I want this personalized and actionable. But I really wanted people to get, and in the understanding of what I'm talking through there, is that the psychology is an appointment is not enough. People need to be held in containers. They need to be supported. They need onboarding information. They need to know their next steps. They need to be supported in a really big way. And so this year we launched a couple things. So we launched kickoff calls just to give people an orientation as to how the clinic works and how you can integrate with other practitioners, and also just give them an overview of, again, what they can expect as they go forward to set expectations. We also launched nutrition 101 calls and wellness mapping calls, which were goal setting calls. And those were wildly successful, like wildly successful. The people who took on those things and did those things had a completely different experience of advanced women's health than other patients. They got better results quicker. They were more directed. They knew what they needed. They felt connected. They knew everyone's name on the teams. They were like, okay, I'm feeling really lost right now. Let me connect with Steph or Cher or Laura like they felt like they were more integrated into a team, which was such an important thing to me and such a huge win, like a huge win. And so we rolled out many of those things. We also rolled out select groups. So we did small group 6-week programs that were collaborative. So we did an educational piece and then we brought in a movement piece as well. So collaborating with local gyms, local movement practitioners to be able to give these very handheld experiences for 6 weeks. And those were also super successful. Again, people just got, instead of getting information, they got transformation, which is a huge theme for next year. So one of the things we're going to be doing next year is rolling out a very sophisticated 30-day onboarding to all of our patients for very inexpensive, right? It's like less than $1 a day that they're getting for that first month to be like, this is what to do. This is what to think about. This is how to navigate. This is what we are doing. And really just go from information and overwhelm to transformation and execution, which has been a huge piece for me. And seeing patients through that process has been a huge piece. And because those were some of the other things we did in 2025. Yes. I keep saying as soon as I finish 2026 projections, it's like a whole new year for me. But we also did a 30-day challenge in the summer, which was so much fun and had people connecting and gathering and executing and eating their protein and going to bed and all of these things, which was so much fun and also so very actionable for people. We saw really huge health transformations and so much connection that came out of that. So we are going to continue doing those types of things, more programming, more handheld experiences, more 6-week programs. Like all of these things are going to be a really huge piece. And we're going to continue to integrate not just our naturopathic doctors, but our nurse practitioners and growing that, our acupuncturists, our osteopaths, all of these people on our amazing healthcare teams that are really just functioning to create this circle of care. The other piece, before I get into the healthcare trends, that was just a huge win this year is connecting healthcare and movement together. I think sometimes it is very tempting to separate the two, right? And to look and say, okay, well, I'm going to get my movement here and my healthcare here. But the reality is, myself included, right, as someone who's dealt with chronic pain for many years, and now fortunately am not in that situation, reformer Pilates actually changed my experience of my body and my pain. And honestly, like you could say, my life in a lot of ways. I thought about my body differently. I thought about how I could move, how I could rehab, and how I could get back to a place of strength in a completely different way. And it was absolutely massive for me. And so we started rolling out, and you'll see a lot more in 2026 clinical Pilates. And also just this understanding of therapeutic movement. There's exercise, there's movement, right? But I think there is this subcategory in the middle of therapeutic movement that is not necessarily being actioned for women in the way it could be. For women who are menopausal, perimenopausal, dealing with pain, endometriosis, fibroids, right? We look at a lot of these different things, post-viral illnesses. These are medical conditions that are contributing directly to pain. And then these women are being told to go work out because that pain, like working out, is going to help build their strength and then also give them more energy, which is what they're wanting. And then they go to the gym and they hurt themselves and they're out for 2 weeks. It's just not working. Like it's not working. And so we do need a very different way to think about these healthcare experiences for that population. And again, a lot of what we deal with at Advanced Women's Health is complex illness. You do not have to be complex, quote unquote, or have a lot of healthcare challenges to come work with someone at Advanced Women's Health. We have people who come in who are like, you know what? I feel like an 8 and I want to be a 10, right? And they just want to up level their experience, get their labs, get more information about their bodies. That's all well and good. But what we have really kind of become known for is the ability to help people other people can't help. And so I'm just constantly pushing our team, pushing the research, pushing to make sure that we are creating these holistic experiences, including therapeutic movement, which is such an important piece to me. So Alas, that is our advanced women's health overview. It has been a huge year. Next year will be even more. And I now can't wait to dive in a little bit to some of our social trends. So let's get into that. So, a couple of the things that we saw this year that I actually am pretty down with and excited to see come out is one of them was creatine becoming mainstream for women. So, creatine is a supplement that has been used for many, 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 many years. And it is something that was very popularized in the kind of gym bro community because it provides an alternative form of fuel for muscles. And so it is something that can help with energy production. It can help with muscle mass protection and preservation, but also muscle growth and development. And of course, these things are all a dosing game. But one of the things that I have done for a decade now is use creatine to help generate energy through a different mechanism for patients. So it is a direct source of what we call ATP or our cells' energy. And so it is something that for cognitive dysfunction, for people who have a really challenging sleep or wake up exhausted, for people who deal with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, we've used this for a very long time. And so the research is now evolved into an understanding of how it can support perimenopause and menopausal patients with brain fog and cognitive health, with their energy, with muscle mass preservation. And so, obviously, do not take any supplement without the guidance of a healthcare provider because it can have impact on your kidneys and other things. But one of the things that we really saw make a huge movement forward this year is that understanding that both creatine and kind of this conversation around energy and muscle mass is very, very important. And that led to some of the other big conversations of this year, which was around menopause, right? Menopause and perimenopause were very widely talked about in 2025. We even went so far as to have the FDA acknowledge and talk about these things. So, hormone replacement therapy, what I'm referring to with that is that hormone replacement therapy has really kind of made a comeback. We now, or the medical community at large, is now recognizing that many of the trials that were done or the research studies that were done that claimed a very significant risk with forms of hormone replacement therapy was I'm trying to be kind and politically correct here, but it was not very well done. And there were a lot of holes in it. There was a lot of misunderstanding. There were a lot of blanket recommendations being made that were not appropriate. And so, with that, the FDA has now acknowledged that. And given that we are now in modern menopause care and perimenopause care, and modern hormonal care, honestly, we use these medications throughout the whole course of the life cycle. But in any situation, modern hormones are very different than the hormones that were studied. They're actually completely different compounds. And so the bioidentical, quote unquote, as much as I don't like to use that term, but the estradiols that we have access to, the progesterones that we have access to, for many women do not have the same risk profile as some of the medications that we were talking about in the Women's Health Initiative. They are a synthetic hormone like compound, and now we are using hormones. So these are different things, right? And we are in a situation where we have a much better understanding of what those risks actually were, and they were a lot lower. So, with that, we have seen a huge uptick in conversations around menopause, around hormone therapy. There has been also a lot of grieving, which I think is really important to acknowledge for people who were never offered hormones or denied hormones who now have osteoporosis, dealing with metabolic dysfunction, dealing with cognitive dysfunction. They are grieving the fact that those options were taken away from them unnecessarily. And so I think it's really important if you're sitting in that category to understand that even if you are overwhelmed because you're still hearing mixed information, you absolutely can get a practitioner who can support you in understanding your individual risks, your individual benefits, and how you can individually move forward. And I think we're going to see a lot of research in that area. But there was just this really, really, really big uptick this year in conversations around hormones and around menopause and perimenopause. And to the point that patients are coming in being like, should everyone be on this? Is like, should this be in the water conversation? And obviously, it's not that. There's no one prescription that's perfect for everyone. We'll get into incretin hormones and Ozempic and Wegovy and all of those things later. But the reality is there's no prescription that makes sense for everyone. And so we just really need to understand risks, benefits, what you're going through, and how you're going to get supported in an individual way, which also means that if you have ever been told an absolute no for something and there's no good reasons given, then you absolutely deserve a second opinion. And I think as much as that's very common practice in some places in the world, in Canada, it hasn't been. But there is this really big uprising right now, which is positive and negative, right? Like there are a lot of companies that are like businesses, right? And what we call private equity companies or venture funds buying up health clinics. And the business of health is more than it ever has been before. So if you want private healthcare in Canada, you can get it. And you can get it easily because someone's making a lot of money off of it. And so wherever there's money flowing, there's opportunity, which is a positive thing. But at the same time, we need to be mindful of the companies that are driven by health objectives and the companies that are driven by financial objectives. And I think there will be a very big distinction. I'm not saying that people shouldn't make money at all, at all. But I am saying that if you view hormone replacement therapy as a cash cow, and so that's why you're recommending it, then your patients are going to get a different experience than, for example, our clinic, which that is an opportunity that we have to make contact with a patient and yes, maybe give them hormone replacement therapy, but also educate them on their metabolic risks, understand what's going on with their liver, their lipids, understand how to customize their diet, understand how to support their gastrointestinal tract, support that patient into movement and muscle mass and what they need to do for that, for energy. It's a very different conversation than like, here's a script and then off you go. So I won't get into that too much, but that was definitely a trend in 2025. So one of the other trends that I'm super about and like obsessed with is the conversation around smart data. So for many, many years, I have loved working with different data that we can get from our bodies. So for anyone who couldn't see and who's listening, I just held up my ring. So I'm wearing right now Ring Con. I have worn Aura in the past. I know many people on our team use, I think it's Ultra Human. There is a company called Circular that makes just about the crappiest product that I have ever tried in my whole life. I'll be completely honest. I bought it, tried it. It did not work at all and got absolutely no customer support. So do not buy that one. They market a lot of things that they are not actually doing. So, anyways, that's an aside, but just a service announcement there. Do not buy circular rings. But Ringcon is amazing. Aura is great. It just depends on what you're looking for. So for me, I'm not interested in paying a monthly subscription. That's just not something that I think I should have to pay to get access to my data. I am in a situation where what I'm looking at is I want to see my basal body temperature. That's an important marker to me. I want to see my resting heart rate, what time I get into recovery sleep, the quality of my sleep. So, how much deep sleep, how much REM sleep. Those are very important metrics to me. My heart rate variability. Those are all very important things. And I do use my step counters for sure. Since about May of this year, there have been very few days that I have gotten less than 7 or 8,000 steps. Up until about a month ago when the weather was really nice, it was 10,000 steps or more every day. And that really did change how I felt, like in a huge way. It was hugely positive for my motivation, my mental health, my stress responses, everything, everything, everything. So I really do think these types of scores can be very, very helpful because they're also very helpful for me as a doctor. One of the things that was also a trend this year that relates very much to this is conversations around the nervous system and stress, but also conversations around sleep and all of the things that are impacting sleep. I don't know if it is just my feed because I'm into this, but I feel like you're seeing everything about sleep routines, about nasal strips, mouth taping, supplements to take, all these sleep supplements. And I think it is a reflection of the fact that our sleep is precarious in many situations. It's affected by stress, it's affected by hormones, it's affected by inflammation, right? We see more sleep apnea than ever before, which is not just related to weight, it's also related to inflammatory responses in the body. We see that sleep is affected by light and what we call the 24-hour clock or their circadian rhythm, and also heavily influenced by when you're eating and what you're eating and how much alcohol you're drinking and all of these types of things. And so this has been something to me that I really have broken down and looked at in a huge way this year for my patients because many people I have seen for many, many years. At this point, I'm very fortunate that I have really loyal patients who hang out and they come in once a year and things may have fallen off, or twice a year and they want to do their labs and then something's fallen off. But sometimes they're just coming to see me, just saying, I want to feel better. I also work with a lot of female entrepreneurs in many different capacities. And one of the things I'll do is I'm like, get me some data. What's going on with your sleep? If you're waking up exhausted and you're lacking motivation, is that because we need to align your business with your values? We need to look at your team and leadership opportunities. Or is that because your sleep is really crappy? Your stress response is out of control. And when I'm dealing with people who are very used to just getting through, push, 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 they get through. These tools, for myself included, are very helpful to reconnect you to your body. I always say now, I can wake up in the morning and I can look at my ring data and I could tell you before I load the app on my phone what my sleep quality was. Because if I wake up and I'm struggling, I know my deep sleep and my REM were not where they should be. I know that my resting heart rate didn't hit its lowest point until 2 in the morning. And so I didn't get recovery sleep. Like I can tell you all of these things. And so it is now just a really important feedback marker for me, but fundamentally, for a lot of patients who don't know that data, they just feel out of control. They feel helpless and they're in this place that they're like, I just don't know what to do. And when we have all these data, we can change the conversation to, I know what to do and I'm not doing it, which is fair and honestly happens. And that's why we roll out so many of these accountability and education consistency programs challenges, because with all of the impact of all of the things flying at us on a day-to-day basis, with all of the directions we're pulled, it can absolutely be challenging to know what you need to do and to do it. And so that was just it's a really big thing for me to give people points of accountability at home that they can use to monitor and understand their bodies and be able to action it in new ways. With the positives this year, we also saw some health trends that I am absolutely not about. So let's talk about those. And then we will also talk about my favorite health trends of the year. So, one of the things this year that came up in a really big way and is going to continue to come up in an even bigger way next year and the many years after is how much AI has changed. So, AI being artificial intelligence, as many of you know. But there have been so many opportunities for misinterpretation of research. There's been so many now. So, for those of you who don't know, and I know many people do, but sometimes I say this to people and they're absolutely shocked. So, I like to round out education is that you can now use AI to make videos. Okay. It's hard to do this right now. It will get easier in the future. But for example, I can get AI to make videos of me saying something. And so right now, there are a lot of videos circulating that look similar to medical practitioners that have a lot of clout behind them that are saying things that are not actually scientifically proven or accurate. And it's very confusing for a lot of people. Same with one of the conversations I'm having to have with my kids. They don't have phones, but I'll be on my phone and they will see an AI generated little animal video because they follow a couple like animal accounts. And so we'll look at them. And I'm like, that's not real. So I'm having to explain to my kids that we used to say, like, if you hear it, it's not real, but if you see it, it's real. And now we have to be like, if you hear it and see it and do your own research and confirm facts with multiple reputable sources that it's real. And that's exhausting. That is exhausting. So we are just seeing a ton of misinformation online right now because people are taking out the legwork and letting AI misinterpret. And one of the things that AI is really known as is an echo chamber right now. So what does that mean? If I say the same things over and over again, it will just spit it back to me when I ask questions. And so people actually love AI for that reason because they feel like they're right all the time. But it's led to this very reductionistic approach where we're not seeing evolution of conversations and we're not seeing conversations align the way they should be. So, for example, it will grossly simplify data and spit it back to you. And so, if you're listening to someone or seeing something and you're like, okay, that doesn't exactly make a lot of sense to me. And they're not answering questions in a way that makes a lot of sense to you. It could be that that is because they're not getting complete and total information, or you're not getting a complete picture. So, yeah, it's a challenging time because there's very charismatic AI bots online and AI videos being put out online, and there are accounts that are not stating that they are all AI generated, but they are. And there's just specific ways as someone who uses a lot of AI, there's things that you can see on it. And there's just a lot of rhetoric and a lot of back and forth on these accounts that some of them have now grown to like millions of followers that are just it's just providing information that's overwhelming and confusing. It's pissing me off a little bit, I'll be honest, because it's not that I want that platform. I just want people to not be more confused than they already are. And so it's just something to be really mindful of. And I think educating yourself on how to recognize what is AI and what is not, and educating your kids around it, I think is a very, very important thing because we have seen some pretty significant public health issues and trends come up because of it. And so just something to be mindful of. And then one of the other things this year that I really just did not love is that skinny talk came back. So skinny talk is quote unquote skinny talk is what it's being called, is essentially this trend on TikTok and many of our social media platforms that skinny is best again. And I really see this trend coinciding with the overuse of Ozempic and Wegovy and these incretin-based hormone medications. Historically, these medications they are very helpful for weight loss. One of the things they're doing is reducing the reward you get from food. So if you don't get a sense of reward from food, then oftentimes you're in a situation where you don't eat as much, right? Or you don't eat the highly rewarding, high fat, high sugar foods. You essentially eat because you need to. You're not eating because of the reward you're getting. So for people with a lot of food noise and a lot of like food addiction patterns, it can be incredibly helpful. We also know that it can replace at very low dosages, replace hormones that are not there because of yo-yo dieting, because of gut inflammation and these other things. So it can be very helpful in that way. I am very pro the use of incretin hormones in ways that are supporting people who are struggling with weight regulation for health reasons and who are in a situation that they understand the negative impacts of them. So they understand how to deal with the digestive issues. They understand that they could lose as much muscle as they could fat. And then as soon as they stop them, their muscle mass is gone and muscle is metabolic tissue. And so then they yo-yo the weight back on, except now they're at higher risk of osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, frailty, many other things. And so I'm very pro medications where they need to be used, but we are seeing this being used in already lean people to get rid of their appetite, to get skinny, like very small. And I think we had made so much progress. And the society is a pendulum, like truthfully, society is a pendulum. We swing too far in either direction. And so there was a body positivity movement that I think is incredibly helpful. We're still pushing for it. Real bodies, real conversations. It's such an important thing. And it went so far as to say that having a large body has no impacts on your health, which I also don't agree with, to be completely honest. I think that There are people who are in a larger body and they're metabolically healthy, and I love that. And I think that's great. And if they are comfortable and supported or like they're supportive of their frame and that's what they want, then I support them 100% in that. Then there are people who are metabolically healthy and teeny, teeny, tiny. Okay, I support that as well. And then there's the conversation of in between, right? Where you can be metabolically healthy or metabolically unhealthy and in a larger body, or you can be metabolically unhealthy and in a smaller body. And so what has happened is we've swung so far in the body awareness conversation that it's starting to spin back in the other direction where we're seeing skinny being preferred again because of a lot of these medications. And it's just, I do have an issue with it. The impact it has on people's mental health, the impact it has on what people are trying to do without these medications, right? We have people that are coming in and they're like, okay, well, I really want to lose X amount of weight and be this size and also not have an appetite. And it's just not in their best interest. They are metabolically healthy. They are in a body mass range that is very reasonable. And they're absolutely allowed to have aesthetic goals. Absolutely allowed to have aesthetic goals. You can do whatever you want with your freaking body. And anyone who says you can't, don't listen to them. But you need to understand that if you are already your body mass index is at 21 and you just want to be skinny and have that 18, 17 or less, you're probably going to lose your period, right? You're probably going to have health implications from that. And some people want to do that for exercise, to do bodybuilding challenges, to do whatever that looks like. And that is, again, completely on them. You choose what you do with your body. But what people are doing is they're not exercising. They're taking those medications. They're losing muscle. They're losing their period. They're not feeling good. And then they're coming in saying, okay, I need you to bring my period back, or I want to do this. And we're having to have the conversations about realistic limits on the human body. And so there's just a lot that's going into it right now. But I think these are all things that we need to acknowledge and understand are happening in the medical community. And then from there, going and making choices about what is best for our body and what we want to do. So hopefully you're still with me here. But those were some of the highs and lows of 2025 when it comes to social. Today's episode is brought to you by none other than Advanced Women's Health. If you are interested in diving in deeper to your health, if you are finally ready to feel like yourself, and you are finally over hearing everything's normal, everything's fine, and you want a deeper dive into your healthcare, then we are here to help you. We are currently helping patients in British Columbia and Ontario, Canada. But don't worry, if you're in another province, still reach out, get added to the wait list as we expand coast to coast. We cannot wait to work with you. Check out the show notes for more information on how to get started. So now I'm going to dive into some of my personal trends this year that I jumped into, loved in a big way, and have made a huge impact on my practice, but also myself. So I'll start with some on myself. So one of the things that absolutely changed my game this year is K Beauty products. So one of my one-on-one clients, Michelle Renee Beauty, that's her social, she made a recommendation to me. So my skin started breaking out, and this was like June. So I messaged her and I was like, hey, I'm not one to have a lot of breakouts. My skin is super sensitive. So like, meaning I historically have not put products on my skin hardly at all. I'm like, I just do oil cleansing, go to bed, and then put on mascara and eyeliner and off you go. But if I put anything on my skin, then it gets red, it gets irritated, it gets really inflamed. I have so many skincare people at Advanced Women's Health, and some of my great friends like Skin by V, who's been on the podcast, they're always like, it's your barrier. It's your barrier. Your skin is inflamed. Some people are like, do you have rosacea? Like, what have you tried? I have probably tried, I don't know, $3,000 to $5,000 in skincare products. Do not judge me. This is over many years, but I love natural beauty and green beauty. I love the idea of taking care of my skin. I love the idea of a skincare ritual. Like, I have tried so many things, so many things. So many of my friends are listening to this. Very grateful for all of my trials because they have got my products on the back end of it. But this year, so Michelle had said to me, you need to try Centella products by this skin. I can't remember. I think it's Skin 1004. Anyways, I 911 her. I was like, I really need help. And she was like, there's this product and this product, but you can just try this Skin 04 or 1004. It's easy to find and like go for it. So, anyways, I bought a bunch of their products. When I tell you it changed my skin, I tell you it changed my skin in such a huge way. I have been shocked using these products about how much of a difference. So, Centella is an herb that reduces inflammation, supports blood flow, it has so many kind of calming and healing properties. So I had known about it from the herb world for a while, but including centella in this K beauty was something that was new to me. So I got their calming pads and then I got their centella ampule. I was just trying those at first. And I noticed that as much as I did get little redness and irritation, overall things started to improve. So then I switched to their oil cleansers and then I switched to their cleansers in general. And I am now able to put topicals and like thicker barrier based creams on my skin. So I'm actually using the Sahajan products now to create more moisture in my skin. At the time of this recording, it is December. It is incredibly freezing cold and snowy. And normally my skin feels super tight and like irritated and dry and uncomfortable and all of these things. And this year, it has been a completely different story. I can put on lots of cleansers and topicals, and I can use, again, very like thicker products to protect my skin in this awful weather and not have crazy breakouts and irritation from it. So, huge, huge K beauty girl at this point. I'm like all about it. So I'm really loving that kind of anti-inflammatory skin approach. I'm loving Ayurvedic beauty. It's a big one for me. So other things that I learned from and loved this year is using Mira. So Mira is an at-home hormone test that I am using extensively with patients this point, like I've used it on myself, my family's using it, and then also we have a ton of patients doing it. And that is because the reality is when we are working in the world of fertility, when we're working in the world of menopause and perimenopause, there's been so many conversations for so many years that a one spot test, like a blood test, a one off, does not give us the answers that we often want and need. And it is so true. The trends and the patterns and the fluctuations in hormones is what is giving us an understanding of vulnerability and risk and symptoms. And so Mira can test FSH, LH, estradiol, and progesterone throughout the cycle. And so depending on what's going on with someone's cycle, we're getting them to test at different points. But it has been incredibly helpful for me to be able to see what's happening. And I've talked a lot about this year about women who are on IUDs. Are they ovulating? Are they not? It's giving us an opportunity to take a really deep look at people's cycle, whether they have PMDD, they think they're perimenopausal, they're in a situation where they do have an IUD and they're not bleeding, but they don't know what's going on. They're trying to figure out when they're ovulating. It is just, again, so valuable. And Mira this is not sponsored, by the way. They sponsor my educational platform for doctors, but this is just something that I use and love. We do have a patient code, so you can DM me on Instagram if you want to save a bit of cash on it. But again, like I'm not just giving out my codes and having these things sponsored. Same with like if Sahajan wants to sponsor me or anyone else is listening, feel free to fire this over because more than happy to take your products. We'll work for products. No, I'm joking. But anyways, one of the things with Mira that I love as well is, of course, I am the guinea pig. So for a couple of years now, I guess over a year now, I've used Mira and I found very, very, very weird trends with my data. So I always try things before I roll it out with patients. And so I was going to the lab to take my blood and using Mira on the same days. And I was monitoring, and they were not consistent. My Mira data showed that I was pretty much menopausal. And I was like, this is so bad. And I was really panicked about it. And so, anyways, I would go to the lab, I was testing, and they were so different. So I contacted the Mira education team. I walked through all my data with them, and they have actually been so amazing, probably because I have a platform in so many clinics. And they're like, why does this kit not work in this woman? But they are doing research with a couple different groups on genetic patterns in that will and won't work with Mira. And so they actually paid for me to get genetic testing done to help to contribute to their research studies, because they do and have done a lot of research with Canadian fertility clinics, used it alongside cycle monitoring, and they do see consistencies in the patterns, as I have seen in my practice as well. But yeah, my trends were definitely not what it should be. So that started me in this huge conversation about liver health, hormonal health, because obviously I have endometriosis. So I'm like, how am I metabolizing these hormones? And what can I do to better understand that for myself and other patients? But also, I'm just really excited to see if there are genetic markers that would make women particularly vulnerable to how hormones are leaving their body, and if we can just have a more educated conversation around that. So, loving Miro, like I said, we do have options, especially if you're an advanced women's health patient. We've got some really good codes for you that if you want to try it, just let us know. And then we can set you up in our professional monitoring system so we can watch everything. So it's been very, very awesome. I feel like this was last year's trend, but it's a bit of this year's trend as well, is just personalized nutrition. So using Prolon, the fasting mimicking diet has been a huge thing that has accelerated the success for so many of our patients and for myself. They came out with a new kit this year that is like pretty much pureed vegetables. It is so much better tasting. Sorry, Prolon, but it's so much better tasting. And personalizing things to someone's specific genetics in the case of hormones, or what they need in terms of their specific insulin pattern has been huge. We have loved insulin testing forever, but in this year, doing a ton of research on understanding different patterns, and next year we're rolling out a whole new metabolic rehab system. And so I am just so excited to get that content in your hands. Looking at the 4 different types of weight loss resistance with so much more detail and precision in the protocols that we're offering is going to be, I'm forecasting out, is going to be next year's trend. But understanding when and where to put protein can feel really overwhelming, but it is a big, 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 big thing that was this year's trend and will be next year as well. And the final, I guess, couple things is really just looking at, again, blood flow, the immune system, lymphatics, clotting. This year has been a huge year of our understanding post-COVID immunology, what happens to the blood in terms of how it circulates, and in terms of little, again, like what has happened in terms of how blood panels have changed. It's given us a huge understanding around the impacts on the lymphatic system, circulation, and we have seen a movement of this kind of Nordic style wellness for a long time. It is not a trend for me this year. It is a lifestyle. It has been for a very long time. But using saunas, cold plunges, understanding those things and how it's impacting our immune system, and how critical blood flow is, whether that's using those different factors, whether that's you're seeing right now, like a lot about rebounding and the shaking plates. I don't know that we need to go that far, but we do need to really understand that there have been huge changes to our immune system and to how blood moves in our bodies. And so we are seeing a ton more circulatory issues. And for me this year, really deeply understanding how that has impacted my period, how that's impacted my circulatory system, my brain fog, and really just up leveling from just using cold and hot and saunas and things like that, to understanding what supplements are required to move that blood and to support the immune system has been a huge thing for me this year. And you will hear that next year as well, because we see people getting sick more often, slower recovery, tons of ongoing fatigue, blood pressure and blood sugar issues. Oh my gosh, we're seeing the works right now. So that has been a big one. And I think the last big trend for me this year, which is probably one of my sad trends, is that historically, and one of the docs on our team, another Michelle, so shout out to the Michelles today in this episode, has harped on me because historically I could drink alcohol and get away with it. Like it was not something I did all the time, but my heart rate variability actually improved, my sleep quality improved. Like I was solid when I consumed alcohol. And this year it really did take a turn. This year professionally was probably, as much as there were so many positive things, it was one of the hardest years of my life. I really had to grow up in a lot of ways, and I really had to learn what dealing with adversity and hate really felt like, which is a whole nother conversation. And I have worked through that, which is great. I also, one of the trends of the year was therapy. But it has been a huge year in understanding the capacity of our body. And I always say you can only handle two silos of stress at a time. Right. And so when we are looking at someone having, for example, stress at home, if you have stress at home and stress at work, then your body starts to become kind of like chaotic. And then if you have stress in your health, then meaning blood sugar dysregulation, inflammation, etc., it can just kick off. And so in my life this year, I really found that up until now, honestly, I have done so much to take care of myself. It has been such a huge priority. And this year, things really derailed that, whether it was like hugely successful things that I wasn't prepared for, or whether it was just hugely emotionally challenging things that I wasn't prepared for. It was a big year of that. And so when I look at it, I had professional stress. And then what would happen is during those windows of time, if I wasn't sleeping as well or was having to eat different food, fly all over, whatever that looked like, then I would be more susceptible to getting issues with inflammatory stress. And about a year ago, I got viral meningitis. And I do really feel like it took a huge hit on my system in terms of inflammation and changed my mitochondrial function. It changed a lot. And so I had to recover from that, deal with stressors and all these other things at the same time. And so my health baseline absolutely shifted. Fortunately, and again, I always say this, I have put so many deposits in my resilience bucket that I was able to keep my energy up. I was able to keep my mood up, my productivity up. Like I was overall in a pretty good place. But those inflammatory and insulin vulnerabilities that I know are there from my past were starting to pop back up again. And so then combine that with alcohol, and alcohol absolutely took out my sleep. Like my deep sleep, my REM sleep, my HRV, it just my resting heart rate was just dead mode. So I really had to step way back from that. Look into again why I was wanting to drink. A lot of it is because I actually really like wine and I actually really like tequila. And so it was, yes, there were parts of this year that I was drinking at the end of the day as a stress response relief. I am human too, everyone. I am human too. But there were other parts that I just really liked those flavors. So this year was a big year. And the last really few months, honestly, because I had a bit of an endo flare. And that to me is always the end. Like, do not, Sarah, you are not allowed to go here. I really, really looked for what are some of those non-alcoholic alternatives that are really, really great that give me that same satisfaction? And what are ways that I can look at, am I feeling my stress response in the wrong way? Am I trying to deal with it as opposed to take care of it? And that sounds so subtle, right? As opposed to just like, oh, I'm just trying to manage it or deal with it, as opposed to get to the root of it and get rid of the stress response in the first place. So it was a big learning year for me in that way, that we are all vulnerable to these things. And I really have reframed a lot of how I teach, a lot of how I educate, a lot of what I am supporting people with online, because I do believe, again, that you can have it all. Like you can handle stress and you can handle life and all of these things, but you have to do it in an intentional way. And so that's again, this whole busy women, angry hormones, angry liver, angry insulin conversation is going to be a big one that I continue to have in 2026, because if you can catch things when they flare in a little way, right? If you can catch things before you get railroaded and completely off track, I monitor my data and I'm like, oh, okay, alcohol is not working for me. And I can just stop and change my mind and change my direction. It's hugely positive. And that's what I want for people is to catch themselves before they feel like they fall off a cliff, right? I want you to be able to have the data and have the information so that you're like, you know what? Okay, not feeling great. Analyze my blood work, analyze my biometric data, analyze my Mira or do a Prolon reset, whatever those things look like to be able to get yourself back to feeling 10 out of 10 very quickly. And that's what resilience is to me. How quickly you can get back to your baseline. And if you fall off so hard every time, then it takes you months and months and months to get back to your baseline, then there's a lot of work we can do to improve your overall health and your overall experience of your body. Whereas if you realize you've fallen off, like again, I took this summer, I had a great summer, super relaxing summer on the beach, all those things. But many of those social activities really did include alcohol. And so it was looking at that and saying, you know what? I've had the last 4 weeks that have not been in line with how I want to feel, how I want to show up. I had a little flare again, like I had a painful period. And I was like, no. And so I got right back on track. My body responded. And that's what I want for all of you is to know there is a life and lifestyle. You can absolutely do those things, but there is also a way that you can get back on track without getting railroaded. So I have harped on for a super long time, but I hope this was helpful. That is what I've seen for the trends this year. I would love to know what your questions are about some of the healthcare trends. So don't hesitate to message me on Instagram. I am just Dr. Sarah_ND, or reach out to the Advanced Women's Health Clinic's Instagram. What trends have you seen? What questions do you have? Have any of these things affected you? Because 2025 has been a year for so many of us. I have heard so many people online talk about this as the year of stripping. Things that were not meant for you are not going to be there anymore. And that honestly could not have been a more accurate year to me. And so I think as opposed to viewing it as stressful now, I just view it as part of the process and look at how it's serving me. And I hope for many of you that this year you can come out of with more resilience, feeling calmer and grounded and more in touch with your body, and fundamentally just more like yourself. And you're not feeling that and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're struggling. Advanced Women's Health and Advanced Men's Health, which we did launch this year and will grow in 2026, is here for you. We are here to support you. And I just want you guys to have such a happy holiday season, enjoy, but also know that if you're not feeling like yourself, you do not have to sit in that place, and 2026 can be your year. So have a beautiful day, everyone. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you had as much fun as we did. And if you loved today's episode, share it with a friend and leave us a review. That is how we spread this message, and that is how we are going to revolutionize healthcare in Canada for women. Have a beautiful day and be well.